There, so I want to talk about the upcoming astrology for the month of August. It's already kind of in full swing now. It's Saturday, August 3rd, and I'm making this video. And of course, we've got Mercury just on the verge of going retrograde, as well as a recent Chiron retrograde. So I've been calling these the double station of Mercury and Chiron retrograde. And just like we recently had a double station of Saturn and Neptune both going retrograde, when you have two planets back to back stationing, it's a confluence of energies. And we really feel those in our psyche because one planet's stationed to go retrograde, they take up a lot of energy and a lot of force. So you could say they dominate the psychic landscape, so to speak. And just even like the themes in the news and just like what comes up in sessions. Like I notice my client sessions, they start revolving around these themes, and even my readings, even if, as many of you know, I'm doing focused readings inspired by the transits now to help people really zone in on those. Like I'm offering Chiron readings at the moment because of the station, which will bring in Mercury, of course, but Mercury retrogrades 4 times a year, so it's not as much of a focal point as Chiron right now. However, it is important, and it's very important for the new moon coming up that we're having on Sunday, because the new moon on August 4th is in a Mercury ruled nakshatra called the Ashlesha. So it's like there's a message there, which we'll talk about in a second. But first, I want to talk about Chiron in a little more detail, because the Chiron station themes that may have been coming up over the last week or so have been centered around abandonment wounds or father wounds. Because Chiron, the story of Chiron, is all about the abandonment from his father Saturn, and then his subsequent being taken in by the sun god Apollo to learn the healing arts, which for translation purposes, we could say for all of us, wherever we have that kind of deep, we all have some kind of abandonment wound. Maybe it is literally from our biological fathers, depending on if the father wasn't there from divorce or death, or working a lot, absent father. I did a whole Project 40 on the father, which you can still get the book. It's basically a book now, and do it on your own timing. We'll call it a solo journey. If you want to do deeper work on that, and I will put a link below. But I've noticed that wherever we have an abandonment wound, that's what's been coming up in very interesting and different ways for different people. And it will just kind of hit you out of the blue, where you suddenly feel like the rug's being pulled out from under you, or something's shifting, or something's changing, or just maybe you even abandon yourself in certain ways, and you have to really look into that and how to, self-correct those patterns of abandoning yourself, like not being there for yourself, or not being true to yourself, or repeating or reiterating childhood trauma or pain that repeats that pattern of either self-neglect or abandonment. So all of these things are coming up right now to the surface. And I think whenever we have a Mercury retrograde, it's an opportunity to process something that usually will involve themes from the past. Now, Mercury's retrograding in Leo in the Magha Nakshatra, which is a Ketu ruled nakshatra, which is all about past life, or even past this life situations and experiences and feelings that are going to come up to the forefront now. It can be ancestral. It's a very ancestral nakshatra in Amritapuri, which I'm not there right now, and I regret missing out on the yearly Vavubali Puja, which is a special ancestral puja that they do this time of year. But it's a good time, this new moon, to make offerings to the ancestors. And now it is in Vedic astrology a Cancer new moon, and it being in this Naga ruled nakshatra, which is Ashlesha, which is a symbol of the snakes entwined. It's often called the star of entwinement. And there's a clinging energy. Sometimes they call it the clinging star. So the new moon could bring up, you want to look in your Vedic chart, your sidereal chart, to look to see where you have Cancer. Of course, in Western, they're talking about it being in Leo. to look to where you have your Cancer house, to see where there's a new beginning, where there's new seeds being planted, where there's a new alchemy that's about to begin for the next 6 months. And to then also look at where you feel enmeshed or bound, or like maybe craving some kind of entanglement, or where you're feeling entangled in that realm of your chart, in that area of your life or your chart. Again, this is kind of the seed level, so it's going to unfold and evolve over the next 6 months. Now, the other big thing that's happening, of course, this month that we're going to be really feeling with the Mercury retrograde is a going back over. Now it's in Leo, as I said, and so wherever Leo falls in your chart, there's going to be a lot of rewriting, rethinking, revising, redoing, and maybe possibly even rewiring. It's funny, as I'm saying that, like I'm getting this weird shooting pain in my right ear. I don't know if that's like an omen of some kind. It's like really literally came out of nowhere. I'm like, what is happening? So maybe it's a reminder or an indication that we're going to hear something that could be a little startling, because we are going to have Mercury square Uranus 3 times during this retrograde journey. So that can be unexpected, kind of shocking news. Or I think we already had the first pass. We're going to have 2 more passes of it. So yeah, my sense is that I'm getting this, thank God it went away, feeling or experience of hearing something that is a little bit startling or unexpected or even shocking in some way. So there will be some unexpected surprises. We were having a lot of Uranian influence anyway in the stars, and we are living in very bizarre, precarious times. Saturn and Neptune are both still retrograde also, so now we're adding Mercury and Chiron to the mix. I can't remember. Yeah, Pluto is also retrograde. So yeah, we've got a lot of retrograde energies right now. And so there's a lot of going back over and retracing our steps and reflection. There's a lot of reflection and contemplation going on right now for the month of August. So for the sake of attention span, I'm going to keep this one really short, and then I'll come back and make a longer one. But this is kind of just intro to August astrology. And the main thing I really wanted to emphasize in this video was how important it is to do the work on our abandonment wounds and our father wounds. And as a Jungian psychologist, I work a lot with my clients on uncovering where these wounds are then becoming complexes and then being projected into relationships or onto repeated patterns, what we call reenactments in our lives. And often they show up in things as simple as self-care or not showing up for ourselves at the highest level or pushing ourselves to our fullest potential. And most of us, one way or the other, have some deep father wound. It's pretty typical, regardless of what the actual story is. So to pay attention to that and to really put the focus on what is needed. Now, the way to tune into what's happening in the Chiron part of your chart, since that I'm speaking in Western terms now, because people who are watching this that speak about Chiron are going to be probably coming from a Western tradition. Now, in Western astrology, it's stationed at 23 degrees Aries. If you were following it sidereal, look to where you have Pisces, the Pisces bhava or house in your chart. That is where Chiron is stationing. And what's interesting is it's stationing exactly conjunct Ceres. So, I mean, oh my God, sorry, Mercury retrograde. It is exactly conjunct, well, within a few degrees, very close to Eris. I don't know why Ceres came into my mind. I have to look and see. Let me look at the chart. There must be some reason for that. To Eris, the goddess of discordia. That's a big deal. Very close to Eris. And it's kind of, you could say Chiron is hemmed between Rahu and Eris, much closer to Eris than to Rahu, but still it's in a hemming position, which means it's getting the influence from both of these planets, which is really intense. Of course, Rahu amplifies and creates some veils and creates some confusion, some obsession, perhaps some possession. And then Eris is the goddess of discordia. So this Mercury station happening right after this, it's very chaotic, as I've said. There's a lot of feelings of chaos, schedule chaos, which always happens with Mercury retrograde, but it's even more amplified right now. If you've noticed, I've noticed for sure, like lots of already miscommunication and scheduling confusion and rescheduling and mix-ups and messages missed and all that kind of thing. So yeah, and as I'm looking at that too, I'm like, ooh, and then we've also got um now Lilith being in an opposition to Rahu right now. That's also kind of interesting to look at. That's gonna increase. They're gonna get closer and closer to an opposition. So Black Moon Lilith being opposite Rahu right now, to me, that's like I see that as even on the political stage, like the rise of the fierce feminine energy coming up, which is really what is happening. You're going to see a lot of even more of this energy over the next few months. And let's see, what else should we talk about with the transits? Well, if we want to look at more asteroid stuff, I think what's interesting with this Mercury, so Mercury is going to retrograde in Leo, and it's going to start moving closer to Venus because they're already kind of moving together. Venus, of course, has just recently risen up in the evening sky. And as Mercury and Venus kind of make their way back to each other, there could be some interesting conversations about Venus things like relationships, love, money, or rethinking. There's a sobering time right now because Venus is out of combustion. She's out of Rahu's gaze right now. So it's like, I think there's a sobering up with our spending and our finances. Not to say like, don't spend, but just that I think we'll be more mindful. We won't feel like, oh my God, what did I just blow my money on? It'll be like, oh no, this is more intentional spending now. And, it could be a little bit of a wake up call or reality check. Also, because Venus is getting the difficult aspect from Saturn as well. And that is also very sobering. So, the opposition right now from Saturn and Venus. So, I think, Venus, of course, will go into her detriment, debilitation at the end of the month when she goes into Virgo. But yeah, enjoy the Leo time for now. When she goes into Virgo, it's kind of like back to work. It's definitely back to school, back to work at the end of the month when we get into September. That's definitely the sobering time with finances. Unless again, it's for something practical or something you want to invest. It won't be so much about like Leo things. Right now, we may be spending more on Leo kinds of things, which is more like, you know, frivolous fun, or things that, we want to show off maybe, or put in the spotlight, or give us a sense of empowerment, or maybe even a little bit rock star flashy kind of things we might be more drawn to during the Venus and Leo phase. But when she goes into Virgo, it's much more practical, earthy, grounded. So in the meantime, we are also, this is coming up later, but I think the other things to watch with Neptune, still kind of just sitting at that 29-degree mark in Pisces. It's yeah, it's really, we're feeling that like we're everywhere and nowhere. Like, where are we? Like, what time is it? What day is it? There's a lot of kind of nebulous, murky, cloudy, confusing, dreamy, spacey, soulful energy. Very good for the creativity, very good for music right now. And the Smashing Pumpkins just put out this amazing record today as I'm making this video. Agori Mori May, and it's super like inspired by Neptune at 29 Pisces. You have to check it out. It's so channeled. It's really profound. It's very Kali. And you're going to see other things, maybe not as awesome as that, but you'll see other pretty powerful, I think, things coming out, hopefully very mystical, powerful, creative in your own life. Like, depending on what you listen to, what you watch, your form of connecting to something sublime. I think we can really, that's the positive higher octave of Neptune coming through right now, channeling the divine. So we have that to look forward to. during this transit while Neptune is still hovering at that 29-degree mark, and this is in tropical. So I know I'm speaking both. As I've been doing that because I have audience for both, and I think it's okay because when we're talking about the some of the more Western themed planets like Chiron or Neptune or Uranus, that's going to speak more to my Western audience. And I can also give you some of you do both, like the Neo-Vedic people. Um, and I find it all really helpful and useful. And even when I do readings, I'm combining, and it's really helpful. You know, it's like getting like all the perspectives, you know? And especially when it's just translated and you don't know where it's coming from, it's not contradicting each other. That's the beauty of these two systems. They don't contradict. Um, they just fill in different pieces and come from different perspectives. So, the other thing to look at, so now if we continue a little bit with this Western, you know, Pluto is sitting at that 0-degree mark in tropical Aquarius. And when even just in a few hours, actually, the moon is going to go into Leo, which is doing once a month, and it's going to go exactly opposite that Pluto. So that's going to happen on Sunday. Very intense day when this, actually, it's probably going to be later Saturday. Saturday and Sunday of this weekend, you'll feel that. It's part of the new moon, actually. The new moon it'll be a little further away from Pluto, but it'll still have that aspect of Pluto. So it will be an intense, very intense new moon, new seed level of integrating. I would say it's really asking you to look at integrating your inner, since we're talking about that father moon, it's like your inner mother, inner father, best and worst qualities that you've gotten from both parents. It's like really asking us to integrate both of those in Cancer and Capricorn. So that I think I should make a whole video on, and I will, and I'll come back and there's more to say, but I said I'd keep this short. It's already getting longer than I wanted to. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I will be back with more. Okay. Take care.